somewhere between 20, I think it was at 28 million is when they pulled it. And that was like a year and a half ago.
And that's based all on your work, isn't
That's
that
all
right?
of it. It was based on my work.
Yeah.
And Jeff Rentz had Peter Joseph, which you can go to my website, jordanmaxwell.com, and go to audio video page, audio video. And one of the first entries is a big banner saying Zeitgeist interview. And it's only about 5 minutes long. But Jeff Rentz interviewed Peter Joseph about Zeitgeist and talked about how those, they pulled the counter a year and a half ago at 28 million. And it's probably more than 50 million now. But he said, why did you make this video? And he said, because the whole thing was Jordan Maxwell's work. I've been listening to him, I've been following his work, and I just decided since he hasn't done anything, I will. So he put all of my work together on religion, ancient theology, the Federal Reserve, banking, and 9/11 and all that nonsense, and put it all together into a 2-hour video called Zeitgeist, which I am told by people, my friends in Hollywood, and I've lived in Hollywood for 48 years, my friends have said that, if it had 28 million and they pulled it off a year ago, it's probably seen with 50 million. That's a very good showing in Hollywood. You can get 50 million people watching something that represents you. That's pretty heady stuff in Hollywood. Absolutely. I didn't do it. I didn't even know anything about it. Yeah. But since then, there have been about 6 other professionally presented videos done on me that I had no idea. People will call and tell me, there's an hour show on you in England, there's an hour show on you in France. Germany actually came over, the National German Network came over and did an hour program on me. And they had Arnold Schwarzenegger in it. And the whole thing was in German. I still have a copy of it. They sent it. And it was done in German on me.
I understand. What about, now I don't know if you're willing to talk about this, but Zecharia Sitchin and you sat down and you asked him to tell you a secret based on all your time with him, the things that you had done for him, et cetera, et cetera. You basically said, tell me something that I don't know.
Yeah.
Are you willing to talk about that? Because
No.
I think that is a clue that people would really benefit from knowing.
Yeah, I don't think I want to talk about that.
Okay, and
because
do you feel
when
that Zecharia would not like that information?
I think it is, no. It was a private conversation, and when I asked him, because like I said, at one time I was in business with Zecharia. I had a contract with him, and so we were business partners, and so I felt a little bit more of a leeway to talk with Zecharia in private, and so I asked him one time some very personal questions about his work, and it was absolutely mind-blowing and staggering, the things he was telling me. And then, well, anyway, then he told me some things about myself, and I was amazed. I never heard such a thing, that what he was being told or wherever he got it from, he had a view on me, who I am and what I'm doing. But at that time we were talking, it was a private conversation, and I think it'd be better just left private.
Okay, fine.
All I would say is this: Zecharia Sitchin is a fascinating man, and a brilliant writer, and I love everything he's doing, and I love the man. He's a very dear friend, and I love Zecharia Sitchin. He's a very, very gentleman kind of guy, and so I like that.
Okay. Would you classify what you've been talking about, in a sense, as a war that is going on a spiritual level
no doubt
for
about
the
it.
hearts and minds of humanity?
Yes, absolutely. There is a spiritual war going on right now, and Hollywood's making movies about it. War of the Worlds, Steven Spielberg. I've said so many times that Steven Spielberg and George Lucas are many things, but stupid is not one of them. Steven Spielberg is trying to tell you something. In one of his interviews a few years back, I remember he said that he does not, Steven Spielberg said, I don't make movies to entertain necessarily. I make movies to comment on important issues of the day. And looking at Spielberg's work, which is genius, something I want to say about Spielberg. I've watched a lot of productions, and I've been in Hollywood for a long time, 48 years. I've lived in the North Hollywood and Hollywood, and I have many, many, many friends in the industry. And I already know, because I've been told, that virtually all the major names in Hollywood know who I am and what they should. I've been talking for 48 years, and they're using all my stuff now, so they should know me. But Steven Spielberg is one of the most clever people I have ever watched a person's work, because he puts a couple of things. One is he's a stickler for accuracy on costumes and the terms that are used. So anytime you see anything that Spielberg has made, it's very accurate. The clothing that would have been worn in those days, the way that people would have talked, it's very accurately done. So he's a stickler for accuracy. But the thing I really appreciate about Steven Spielberg is he puts little things, little small things that you would never see if you're not looking for it, that are really a mind blower. And you think, wow, back that up, and that one scene with that one person, what they said, he's a master at doing that. He's a master at putting powerful things in some little insignificant scene. So if you're not watching, you never get to see the real genius of Steven Spielberg. I love watching his movies because I know what I'm looking for.
So he's using symbolism
all
over his movies.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
And George Lucas, equal. Yeah. George Lucas is brilliant, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. He was heavily, he even said, he was heavily influenced by Joseph Campbell, the famous, and Joseph Campbell was an incredibly dear man. I just love listening to Joseph Campbell explain mythologies and all the symbols of the ancient people.
Did you know him?
No, I never had a chance to meet Joseph Campbell.
What about Arthur C. Clarke? Did you ever?
No, I never had a chance to meet Arthur C. Clarke either, but I would love to have. I've had opportunities to be in the company of people like that, but I was not in a position to travel. I didn't have the money. I was in a depressed state of mind, and so I let some very important people go by that I could have been with. I used to be on the board of directors of an organization in Hollywood, this was quite a few years ago, called US of A. US of A was United Sensitives of America. This organization was founded in Burbank, and I came in at a very early period, and I ended up being on the board of directors of US of A. I really didn't take a whole lot of charge in it. The man who started it pretty much ran it. But in words, I was on the board of directors. But anyway, it was an organization where numerologists, astrologers, all kinds of esoteric disciplines would come together. And we would put on shows, expos, and also once a year we would put on an award show where we would honor certain movie stars for their work in feeding the poor or whatever.
But weren't you also involved in maybe discovering murder suspects?
Oh yeah.
And
we
also
would, like every 2 weeks.
Occult
happenings.
Every
2 weeks. I think it was like every 2 weeks. We would meet about 9 o'clock in the evening up in the Hollywood Hills from the Hollywood side. And we would be up there, and there'd be about 50 people up there in this big, huge home that was owned by a movie star who had passed away. And it was a huge, big home, and then the front room was just enormous in size. And there would be like 50 people there every 2 weeks. And there would be a group of astrologers, group of psychics, group of numerologists, group of this group and that group. And they were all different disciplines in the esoteric sciences. And we would have the police department or the sheriff department, usually it was LAPD, would come up, sheriff a couple of times too, and they would come up, and we had a big blackboard, and they would have pictures up on the wall of the case that they wanted us to talk about. And they would show us the person who was kidnapped or the body that was found or whatever the case was. And then the officer in charge, usually a detective, would write down, or I have it already written down, all the pertinent information that the police department had, so that each group sat with a group. I mean, all the astrologers sat together.
I do want to ask you, which group were you among? Were you a psychic?
No, I was with the people who were putting it on. It was all being sponsored by the US of A, United Sensitives of America. And since I was on the board, I was there representing the company that's putting this thing together. And we would also do, like I said, we also would have award ceremonies once a year, in which we would give awards to different people who are doing different things for humanity. I was privileged to be able to be there to give Manly Palmer Hall an award for his work in service to the world. Manly Palmer Hall, I believe, was one of the finest and most dearest men I have ever met in my life. He was not only charming and extraordinarily brilliant mind, but he was one of the most decent and beautiful people that I have ever personally ever met. Manly Palmer Hall was a extraordinary teacher. He never promoted anything. He merely educated people as this is where this came from, this is where that came from, this is what that word means. So he was an educator. People have called him all kinds of names because he was a Mason. I knew him personally. I've been to his home. When he died, he left me a beautiful gift. All of his research journals he left to me.
That's amazing.
I was shocked when I got a phone call from Philosophical Research Society in Los Angeles, and Obadiah Harris, the president at that time, said, "Mr. Hall wanted you to have something when he passed away." And I said, "What is it?" And I was in San Diego, and he said, "I'm not going to tell you, just come pick it up." So I drove up that day to Los Angeles from San Diego. And it was all of the research journals of Manly Palmer Hall he gave to me. And I consider that to be a monumental gift from a very powerful man.
Did you find some clues there to follow out?
Tons of stuff there.
Okay.
Manly Palmer Hall, as I said, was one of the greatest teachers the world has ever known. In my humble opinion, I don't think there's ever been in any era of time a man to come close to what Manly Palmer Hall was able to do. Anyone who has an open mind, and of course your mind is like a parachute, it doesn't work if it's not open. Anyone who is intellectually honest, which you don't find very much, intellectually honest with an open mind, mature and intelligent person looking at the work of Manly Palmer Hall would have to say this is one of the greatest men that ever lived. I don't know how many, maybe 70 or 80 books on esoteric subjects of the whole world, over 46 sets of lectures, like 6 90-minute audio lectures on 46 esoteric subjects of the world.
Wonderful.
Incredible, plus thousands of lectures. Incidentally, I have everything he ever did. Every lecture he ever did, I have digitized. Monumental work. But he was a personal friend of mine, and I loved him dearly. And I'm saying this because there are so many people who put him down because he was a Mason. He was a wonderful teacher, a brilliant man, to which his detractors could not even hold a candle.
I hear you. How do you feel? I'm just to
and he's
change
not the only
gears.
one. I have other people I feel the same way about. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Just to change gears here a little bit about the current administration of Obama.
Well, I'm not political as such. Personally, I think I would choose my words carefully here, because I like Obama as a person, and he's very personable. He's the kind of guy I would love to sit and chat with, and his children are beautiful. His wife is a very intelligent young lady, and so I don't have anything against Obama or his family. I think they're very personable and very interesting people. But it's the powers behind him that he represents that's frightening to me. I know things about the people who are behind him that is absolutely staggering, frightening. I live in fear of what's coming because of what I know, not because of what I believe or think, because of what I know.
Are you talking about war? Are you talking about an agenda that involves war, World War III?
Well, that's always possible. Let me go back and say this. Again, I have nothing against Obama as a person, and I like him. The family, I have nothing against them at all. But the symbol that I was telling you about, that I've been working on, did you ever see the movie, the television show, V?
Oh, absolutely.
The very first one?
Yeah.
Well, the ABC is now remaking V. They're remaking it. And I was shocked. Someone sent me an email. I think they were in Hollywood. And they sent me an email with a picture from the new movie coming out soon. I think it's going to come out in the next month or so. A made-for-television movie by ABC.
Really? Okay, fabulous.
Disney ABC.
Very interesting. Okay, yes.
And it's going to be called V. And it's a remake of the original.
Okay.
But in it, the extraterrestrials, who are referred to as the visitors in the new one are giving to the public a pamphlet explaining their, quote, new world order that they are bringing to the planet.
Right.
And the picture, which I have, shocked me. My knees got weak and I had to sit down. It was shocking. There was the visitors, the alien visitors who looked like humans, were handing out pamphlets to the people about their new order that they were going to bring in. And the title of the pamphlet was The Dawn of a New Day. The very words that I have been researching for some 40 years is now going to be in the movie of the new V.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, that is not only significant, it's mind-blowing when I give you the whole story. ABC and Disney are telling you something about this symbol that I've been looking at for a long time, and it's going to be right in your face, because I'm telling you that symbol is going to become the most important symbol around the globe for the first time in the public view. Anytime you want to do research on the hidden stuff, like I've done, it's everywhere. But no, now, because of Obama, now the secret societies of the, what I think are extraterrestrial masters of this world, are going to bring this symbol out into the world so everyone can see it. And eventually what's going to happen is that the whole human race is going to wake up, and this is what my opinion about 2012. My opinion of 2012 is going to be an awakening for the whole world. We've been had. They're going to see this as an ancient thing that's been coming for a long time, and we never saw it, we didn't understand it, but when my video comes out that I want to do, it's going to be like a 3-hour step-by-step on Obama's symbol, Jimmy Carter, all the presidents, the Bushes, the entire superstructure of Western civilization, and what this stuff really means and where it really comes from. I think, and I'm not trying to aggrandize myself, but I really believe that it's going to cause quite a sensation when people see what I really have, that I've never told anyone before. Because and when I see Obama using the same terms, the same symbol, the same one that the communists used, the Nazis have used, the fascists have used, the secret societies around the world of Freemasonry have used, the Babylonians, as I said, all the ancient Egyptians, they all use the same word, term, and symbol. And now ABC is coming out, Disney ABC is coming out with a new remake of V, and in it the extraterrestrials that look like humans who are bringing a, quote, new order to the world. And the pamphlet in the movie is called Dawn of a New Day. I was said, wow. I cannot believe how overwhelmingly obvious this secret symbol is now becoming. And that's why I want to do this video on it.
But were you told more about the movie, more about, you know, where they're going with it? In other words, I'm assuming you haven't seen it. But
No, I haven't seen it yet. But I watched the other ones so many times. And the other ones, if you remember in the original, the visitors, they were wonderful people. They were very gracious and charming. And then remember the lady who was in charge of the visitors, she was the highest ranking. She went into a room and pulled off her face, and it was a reptile alien.
Yes.
I personally, I brought David Icke to America. He was in America because I brought him here personally.
Yes.
And so I'm saying that I am totally convinced, beyond a shadow of a doubt, for myself, that there are such things as reptile aliens. Though I have never seen one, thank God, but I totally believe they're here. Not because of David Icke, not because of Krito Mutwa, who I love listening to, a wonderful, fascinating man. David Icke has done great stuff. But I believe there are reptile aliens here because of my own personal research. I have been in the company of at least 8 people over the past many years, 8 different people. Each one is extraordinarily well-grounded people. Airline pilot, one, with a major airlines, a very wealthy man in Las Vegas who buys and sells commercial hotels, buildings, etc. Extremely wealthy man, Christian, incidentally. Very Christian man, but very, very wealthy, a very highly intelligent man. Sat down and told me about his personal one-on-one with a reptile alien in which many others in his church were privy to see. That's a whole story in itself. That happened in Colorado. And then to have scientists and a young lady who was one of my favorite people in the world, a young lady called Nancy, who just blew me away. And on my radio show, I used to have a show. I've had 7 different radio shows in my life. Like to get back on radio and do my own show again. But I had a show on KPFK here in Los Angeles, FM station. And one night I had Nancy on. And Nancy just blew the audience away. She is so feminine, so incredibly charming and feminine girl, talking about stuff that will blow your mind. Her father was in the Air Force, her family was Air Force, but her father was in charge of project retrievables for the Air Force. The man who was in charge of going out wherever in the world, any extraterrestrial activity, he was in charge in the Air Force to go there first. And he was the boss. And she said, and the modus operandi was always the same. And I'll have to make you a copy of her. I got two 2-hour interviews that will just knock you out. And you could tell this is a very charming girl, but telling you stuff that you're going to have to sit down to deal with. And she said her father, wherever they would go, she always lived on military bases. And she said, and always the method was the same. There was one phone in the house for the family, and then there was another phone which no one ever touched. You never used it. And when that phone would ring, no matter when, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, it doesn't matter. If that phone rang, her father had 10 minutes to be fully dressed with his briefcase and ready to go. And in 10 minutes, a car would pull up and nothing was said. No voices, no nothing was said. A knock on the door, he would walk out, he would have military escort him to the car, get in the car and drive off, and that's it. Nobody knows where he's gone, and nobody needs to know. And so she said, and many a night, they would get that phone ring, he would get up, dressed, briefcase, ready to go, and they would take him somewhere in the world where something has just happened, and the Air Force was sending him to see what just happened, and they're in charge. And she would tell me the things that her father, especially her mother, she said the father would never tell her anything when she was a child, but the mother would tell her later on in life. She told me an experience that just blew my mind about a reptile alien, and you really have to hear it from her. But she basically, the story, and it's so fascinating, I got to tell you. She said her father would never allow her to be left alone in the house ever. When he would go off during the day, they live on base. They live on base. Doesn't matter. When he would leave the house, immediately military would come and guard all 4 corners of the property. They would sit there in cars and guard while he's gone. Anywhere. If he went to the market or whatever, they would be guarding the house. And he would never allow her to stay at home by herself. And so she said one night, and you'll hear this interview, she said one night, it wasn't on base, they were here in Los Angeles somewhere, and she said that her mom and dad were going next door to a party next door, and she asked her dad if she could stay when she was like 13, 14 years old, and he said no, absolutely not. So she talked to her mother, and the mother talked to the father, and got him to agree that she could stay home. And so she said, so for the first time in her life, she was actually going to be alone in the house by herself. And she said, so she was in a bedroom, she said, combing her hair, and she had a mirror that she could see her closet. And the closet had French doors. And she said they were closed, partially closed, and it wasn't too well lit in the room. She said she was combing her hair, looking at the closet door, and all of a sudden the closet door opened up, and a reptile alien stepped out. And she said he had to bend down to get under the header, and he stood up. She said it was a full-grown man, extremely muscular, but it was a reptile body, reptile alien head. And she said this thing looked at me, and I'm looking at it in the mirror. And she said he started moving toward me without moving his legs. He was just floating toward her, slowly. And she said, I felt like it was like coming up on a fly. He was, grab you quick. And she said she jumped up and screamed and ran down the hallway, ran into the bathroom, locked the door, opened the window, and started screaming. Of course, everybody in the neighborhood heard. She said, and when I heard, and this reptile alien, she said, came down the hallway, and I could feel that him walking because he was so heavy. And he was scraping on the door, growling, like a dinosaur growl, scraping on the door. And she said, then when her father and the neighbors come running up, they open the door. When they come running up, they were yelling outside. This reptile alien ran back down the hallway into her bedroom and disappeared. She said when her father came in, the bathroom door was just ripped. And obviously, the father said he was not going to hurt her, but it was a message. And he said, that's why I never wanted her to stay alone. Because these aliens have told us, the Air Force, that you keep poking your nose into our business. Every time something happens, you come out and poke your nose. So we just want you to know, the next time something happens and you poke your nose into our business, while you're out here poking your nose into our business, some of us are going to come visit your daughter. So you need to stay home and stay out of our business. And so he said, so that's why they always had military around anytime he left. And so when she was telling me this story about other reptile aliens, and of course I've heard it from so many legitimately important people, I have to believe that there is something to this story. I have personally not seen one, but I don't want to. But I've seen enough to know that there are life forms on this earth which are not from here. I've already seen too much to know that. My experiences have been extraordinary, as I said. 36 major experiences I've had in my life where I've dealt with other world phenomena. So, I don't know.
Okay, well, this is a really amazing interview. Can you talk at all about anything else that you think that people should know in terms of the overall picture that you've been giving them here?
I would say be aware that there is a war for your soul. There is a war for the spiritual. You know, there's always been this question for thousands of years. All the great philosophers ask it about whether we are physical bodies which have a spirit in it, or are we originally a spirit which has taken on a physical body? You know, I mean, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? But I am convinced that no matter how it happens, if we were physical and took on a spirit, or maybe we were a spirit and took on a physical body, I believe that there is a war going on from somebody out there that was an original enemy of whoever created us. So whoever created us has enemies out there in the universe that are diabolical enemies. And we know this is true in government. You know, you may see the president and the first lady and all of that, and it's very prom and proper, but they have enemies, powerful enemies. That's why they have to be totally surrounded by military and protection, because they have serious enemies. Something happened to me that tells me that there's something going on like that. I was in Hawaii many years ago with my wife and some friends. We went to Hawaii for the first time. And I was sitting in a restaurant across the street from the Hilton Village. And in the restaurant,